The following is an encore presentation of New Expressions.
Oh, hey, good morning, and we have a bit of fuzz on the line. That's better. Okay, welcome to New Expressions. It is Friday morning, and again, as I've said last week, I am not Evan Knox. The poor man is still unwell, so prayers and thoughts going out to Evan. Hope you're feeling better, mate. But the way you sounded the other night, yeah, we wouldn't be letting you in here anytime soon. But that's all good. We have Craig with us here. Craig, how you doing?
G'day, Rick.
Oh, we're a little jittery there.
Yeah, fantastic, and a whole last night. Yeah, he did not sound well, and so love and prayers going out for Eben. We hope that he's going to pull through and feel a little better over these next couple of days. He said he was on the rebound.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll pull through, but yeah, I think he needs a few more days. Now, you've got a really special guest with us today. Craig, I'll let you do the intros. You probably know this guest a little better than I do.
You know, Rick, you just dropped 4 reallys, and
I know.
You know,
it's really
special.
Really.
I mean, I think everyone on the Central Coast is now leaning in.
Yeah. Good.
Who could possibly be 4 reallys in a special guest?
Mm-hmm.
And that's none other than my spectacular bride, Danni Stephens, who is our first-time guest on the New Expressions program.
And I've got to ask, Craig, why has it taken you so long to get Danni on the air?
You should ask her that. I think she's a reluctant participant. The fact is that we have had a really significant time of, particularly over this last weekend, and I thought, it's the perfect timing to get Dan in. So welcome, Dan.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I've been a very regular listener of the program, but first time on this side of the program with microphone. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Most welcome.
Yeah, and I think perhaps a more faithful... Well, there's only one more faithful listener than Dan to the New Expressions program, and that's my mum, of course, who's listening in from Chatswood. Shout out, Mum, glad you're there. And Frosty, who's driving around in the trucks at the moment on the Central Coast, who always has Rima dialed in as well. So shout out to Frosty.
Good man.
But we thought... I had this brilliant idea, Rick. I'm sure you think it is too. That we could have a conversation with Dan. I call her Danni, because we've just had this last weekend gone over the public holiday long weekend, now called the King's birthday long weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it funny how the King and the Queen had the same birthday?
It's ironic, isn't it?
It's hilarious. I mean, strange in some ways, but you know. Anyway, the King's birthday long weekend. Across the Central Coast was the Harvest Festival that Central Coast Council put on. I'm going to say every year because it's an annual event, but I'm not sure exactly how long it's been going. Dan, why don't you tell us about the Harvest Festival?
Yeah, I'm not sure how long it's been going on for. Maybe I'd be guessing at least 5 years, but we'd seen it advertised around. I think as a family we'd gone and attended some of the sites, but the idea is that it's an opportunity for local farms or businesses on farms to have a bit of an open day. So like you can go pick your own oranges, or, you know, go up to the pecan farm and pick your own pecans, maybe go and pat an alpaca, or lots of different things. And so being in a rural space with our ministry, I'd always felt like we should probably be a part of that. So last year we put our hand up to be a site for or they call it a hub for the Harvest Festival. So this year was our second year that we've run with that, and we've had a great weekend. Love being a part of it.
It sounds like, I mean, it's an event that obviously faded off a bit during COVID years, but it sounds like it's coming back stronger than it was. So, I think it's a good thing for all these farm gate things to operate and people to get... I think someone was also come and pick your own sunflowers and all sorts of things.
Yeah, they marketed it pretty heavily, and they marketed it into Sydney and Newcastle as well. I know last year it landed on the Weekend Sunrise or something as well. So it got some really good media. And what happened was folks from Newcastle and Sydney, travelled to the Central Coast for a bit of a rural outing sort of thing. And our site, was activated because we have a partnership with a local landowner who owns the property where we have our ministry, but also a few local schools as well. And so we do an Equine Connections program, which is basically horses and people, if you want to make it really simple. And so being in a rural space, doing some ministry and utilising the horses, we went, here's a brilliant opportunity to showcase, what the Salvation Army in a new expression looks like. A lot of people would be familiar with, the Salvation Army as our social services, the drug and alcohol treatment stuff, the homelessness services, food parcels and welfare and that sort of stuff. Others would be really well familiar with us from our shops with the Salvo stores and, the op shop type thing. But we, Dan and I, in our ministry on the Central Coast, have been given an opportunity to do what they call new expressions, and that's why this program's called New Expressions, funny enough. Eben said, why don't we just call it New Expressions? I went, okay, sounds good. But that's how we ended up on a farm.
Yep.
And how we ended up participating in the Harvest Festival.
I think we were actually calling this program New Expressions before you had that title, weren't we?
Well, I didn't have that title before we did this program, but anyway.
So let's unpack a little bit. Equine Connections. What does that mean, and why is it a ministry?
Well, big questions, Rick. So basically, we invite young people who maybe have come from a little bit of a difficult background, trauma, maybe finding it hard to connect in at school or at home. A lot of the kids that we work with are in out-of-home care. And we just find that the horses are a beautiful way to just reconnect them with something that is peaceful, something that is non-judgmental, and a way for these kids to just, I suppose, be loved. That's our heart for them, that they feel an expression of the Father's love.
How do horses do that?
Just by their sheer size, I suppose, they're 400, 500 kilos, they can be intimidating. So there's not many people that sort of rush into that space without just having a little bit of a check about, what is this thing? What's it going to do to me? What do I need to do to maintain my safety here? Sometimes people come in just in awe at these huge animals. But for whatever their initial response is, the horses have an effect on them that just sort of brings them to focus on that moment and that moment with that other living thing. So just by their sheer size, they have a capacity to draw people in. Naturally, they don't judge. They don't have an answer back. They don't have an expectation of what this kid should or shouldn't say or should or shouldn't respond. So we find that it breaks down a lot of these barriers that can sometimes be built up between people, person to person. And these kids have often dealt with a lot of different people, different carers, different professionals. And we just find that our horses are just a perfect therapist, there to listen, there to express love, there to be loved. And that's a very big part of our program, the idea that we each need care, but we are able to give care as well. So these horses invite that aspect of caring for others, caring for nature, caring for creation, and that's a really important part of becoming well, I think, the idea that we need care and we are able to give care to others around us.
Yeah, I love that. I was wondering, because you actually hit on the name of the property in saying that, you want to just talk about the location and the name and how we came to be where we are?
Yeah, so we found this beautiful word in the local Darkinyan language, which we feel really sums up what our heart is and what the heart for this property that we work on is. And that is a word that is Yaraba, and that word means become well, to become well. So this idea of journeying towards wellness, and that it is all of us, each of us that are on team and ministering, each of those that come in and participate in our programs. The horses themselves, each have a story and, need that care and things, and the earth itself as well, that we are looking after all those aspects, and together we are becoming well. That's our hope.
Yeah, I think there's a really significant kind of redemptive aspect to that, Rick, in terms of charting a course of walking into wholeness and healing and so on, that's captured well. We could spend a whole program talking about the fact that there are only a handful of local Indigenous words to choose from. Is that right, Dan? How many?
Oh, look, I think originally when I was first looking into things, there was only 26 words in the local language that are, all those that are, well researched in that topic could actually agree that were definite Darkinyan words from the Darkinyan language. But I think that's a little bit freer now. There's a little bit more that's been added to that. I couldn't tell you an exact number.
Yeah, that's a whole history thing.
Yeah. Do you find that particular horses connect with particular people differently? Like, is there a personality side to the horses that, the certain person who's participating there, they just connect with one horse rather than another one?
Yes, definitely. And those moments are quite beautiful when, a young person and a particular horse have a connection. We've had mornings where I can remember one young person did nothing but hug one of our horses. And she just stood there happily being hugged. And he just stood next to her with his arms around her neck and just hugged her. And if you went a little bit closer, you'd probably hear a few words. And he was talking to her most of that time, but he didn't move. I think there was obviously a real connection there. I've had another little story of seeing one of our bigger, probably more clumsy, less engaging horses. Had a beautiful moment with a young girl who was absolutely terrified and was so courageous in stepping out and helping to take him for a walk. So the activity was just to take him for a little walk around one of the yards, and one of our volunteers was helping facilitate that. So she stood herself between the horse and the young girl, and the young girl was able to bravely hold the end of the lead rope, and that was her participation in this walking. But she was absolutely terrified, such that the volunteer would only just invite the horse to maybe take 2 steps at a time, and then stop, because this young girl needed just, to take the pressure off and just sit for a moment and take a breath and things. But as they stopped, I remember watching this huge horse that's usually just not at all attentive to what's going on around him. And he's leant around in front of our volunteer and put his nose on this young girl's stomach and just stayed there. And she initially panicked, going, "What's he doing? He's going to bite me. He's going to bite me." But that wasn't at all what was happening. It was, he had obviously sensed her extreme fear and was just stopping and connecting in with her and just seeing if it was all okay. Obviously, the volunteer helped to unpack that for her and describe that for her, and then they were ready to go again and take a few more steps. And this horse did this every time they stopped. It was really beautiful to watch. And then so what started out as a very fearful sort of approach, this young girl went away with this beautiful connection that this horse sees me and he gets me, he understands me, and he cares for me. So huge success in those moments. I love it.
I'm no horse expert, but to me, I mean, I'd look at that and go, that horse is, by lowering its head below the child, it's submitting. It's sort of saying, because normally if they're cranky or whatever, they'll raise their head to assert dominance. So it's sort of lowering itself and humbling itself to the child in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. So attuned to her needs and took it totally at her pace. It was beautiful.
Where do all the horses come from? I think are these like rescue kind of horses or just...
Some of them are. So we have 8 horses at the moment, and some of them were in the paddock that we're using. So they've just joined our herd. It's their home and they're sharing it with our therapy horses. So they've just come on board. Some of the horses we have been given, we have been seen to be a good retirement home for much loved horses that have probably had quite an extensive history in the show ring or eventing and things like that, and they just wanted them to retire to a good home, and so we'll love them, care for them. We won't ever overwork them and put too much pressure on them. And then some of the horses have come from the Duralong Transformation Centre, or what was formerly the Duralong Valley Resort. So they were part of the quite large, I think, establishment, which was a riding establishment, trail rides, etc., that existed for many years.
Okay, we're going to take a short break for a song, and I think this is somewhat appropriate. It's Cecina with Something Beautiful. We'll be right back. And we are back.
We are back, and it's New Expressions, and it's every Friday morning where we just brag solidly on King Jesus and have fun listening to awesome musos like Cecina. Wasn't it awesome when she was here last year on the coast, Rick?
Yeah, and I believe she's planning another trip out here too. I'm not exactly sure when that is, but I believe it's coming up maybe later this year.
Had the privilege of having her on the New Expressions program and just chatting a little bit about her music journey. It was spectacular. Today, our special guest is not Cecina. It's someone even more spectacular and famous. Is my wife, Danni. Fantastic. Glad you're here, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
We're talking about the New Expressions ministry that you and I have together, but in particular, the major focus that you have, which is the Equine Connections ministry. I thought we'd have this conversation on air because, well, we've just had the Central Coast Harvest Festival, which was over the long weekend. And at the long weekend, your site, the Yadaba Farm, which is an Aboriginal word meaning, journeying towards wholeness or moving towards health and wholeness or well-being. Your farm was a live site amongst about 30 others across the Central Coast, I think. What we do know is that, being part of the Salvation Army, it was an overtly Christian site. We had worship playing throughout that weekend as well, which was really awesome, amongst some other entertainment. But maybe you want to take a moment just to tell us what the weekend of the Harvest Festival looked like at Yadaba Farm.
Yeah, well, we've had just a wonderful weekend. I'm so excited, and even days later, just still buzzing over our Harvest Festival participation. So it was just lovely to open our gates and welcome the public in. So we have an amazing team of volunteers that we really punch above our weight, and I think what we managed to facilitate at the weekend, there were so many facets to it. It was just wonderful. So our heart is that, people can come and feel loved, that they can enjoy some aspect of creation and being in the beauty that is the Duralong Valley, that they have opportunity to connect with each other, to connect with our horses, maybe participate in a little bit of creativity, and just sit around and enjoy our live music. So there was heaps happening. We had borrowed all the big mega games from the Oasis Youth Centre in at Wyong. So there was Mega Jenga and Connect 4 and things like that happening. We had a fire pit. where you could toast your marshmallows. We had live music and a team of people sort of rolling through that with different sets. We had a market stall with some wood turning and different handicrafts and like jewelry and our honey. What else did we have? We had amazing food. We had a huge team of people at our barbecue where we served Q and Crew brisket burgers, which were just delicious. Coffee, we had garden art happening. You could come and plant a tree and help us to green our space and create habitat for our local wildlife. What else do we do? We had a horse treat booth, so you could come and feed our horses over the fence with some yummy apples and carrots. We even had people doing some fire weeding in our paddocks, which we really appreciated, helping us to manage our paddocks a little bit better. So there was heaps happening. We loved being a part of it, and so grateful for all the help that went into putting it together, and also for all the people that actually turned up. We loved it.
I think it was a huge success. We had, as I said earlier, over 800 people come through the gate, and a bunch of those families we're here for the day to have a farm experience. So brought a picnic. I mean, we had the hay bales set out, across the top end of the property where it was the seating. If you find a bale of hay, that's your seat. Jump on that and enjoy a bit of a picnic feel in the paddocks. And a whole bunch of Central Coast sites were, available to the coast and to people from Newcastle and Sydney as well. How funny is this? And we haven't even talked about the horse activity that was available. No. But we had, I'm standing on the gate welcoming people to the property and giving them a bit of an orientation of what to expect. And it's this hire car. It's like a Hertz hire car that's driving in the gates. And I thought, maybe they've had a bit of a prang and they've got a loan car while they get their car fixed or something. But these two couples jump out and I say, where are you from? And they said, we're from Singapore. I thought, that's a long way to come.
They've come a long way, yeah.
Where have you come from? I come from Sydney, but we're visiting from Singapore. How did you find yourself into the Duralong Valley, And how's this? They just Googled what to do on the weekend when they were in Sydney, and the Central Coast Harvest Festival came up, so they drove to the Central Coast and ended up on our property.
Wow. That's pretty bizarre.
Fun, yeah? Then they had this spectacular experience with a horse. But we ticket the event to do horse activities. You want to just talk about that, Dan?
Yeah, I didn't mention that at all. But yeah, so we had our arena busy all day Saturday and all day Sunday, and we had horse rides for the kids. We also had activities, an activity that I called horse play, where people could book in and come and groom our horses and maybe take them for a walk, so they could set up the arena with different apparatus to make like you'll call it an obstacle course, yeah. And just partner with our horses in a very different way, rather than just doing I'll jump on, you take me for a ride, and that was fun and off I go. But actually spending time with these horses and learning how to be a leader with them and just having a little bit of fun on the side of that. And then our end activity with our horses was what we called horse art. So we have
which is not teaching the horses how to paint.
Well, that would have been fun to watch.
It'd be interesting, wouldn't it? They've got a hoof, so how are they going to hold a paintbrush, mate?
I have seen that happen. I've seen
people without arms and legs paint, so don't rule it out.
Well, I do believe I have seen somewhere online a horse with a paintbrush in its mouth, being somewhat creative, but that's not what we did. We have two horses that are lighter in colour. All the rest are quite dark brown, but the lighter ones lend themselves quite well to being a canvas for the kids to actually paint onto. So the kids teamed up in twos and created some art on the horse's neck and back and side and things. And we've still got very colourful horses walking around our paddock.
I believe there is actually a horse colour called paint or painted, but I don't think that's quite what they meant.
No.
I didn't know that. Yeah,
Wasn't that the
such a
Indian
horse-
ponies, the Western Indian ponies? Weren't they called paints or something? Or
Yeah, the multicoloured ones. Yeah, the brown and white or black and white. Yeah.
there you go, Craig. I know more about horses than you. Look at that.
It would seem so, Rick, and I grew up on a farm, but apparently you're the horse expert. So there you
Well,
go.
I grew up in Bankstown, mate. There was a lot of horses there. Not.
Well, all these activities at the Harvest Festival were all ticketed and all completely sold out, which is what we had happen to us last year as well, which is a good problem to have.
It
But
is.
over 90%, I reckon, of the visitors to the site were actually people who had not been able to get tickets, just wanted to come out and have a farm experience.
Okay.
And so, simple things. And I was talking to my mates in Sydney about this, and they're going, well, of course it makes sense because kids don't grow up, like we did back in the day where you'd just have a little fire pit and you'd toast your marshmallows. It's like you can't do that in the city. Sydney, it's just not optional. And so, but a whole bunch of people who live in the CBD on the coast don't have those experiences
That's
either.
true. That's true.
And so, it's a hit.
Why not? Why wouldn't you want to be playing with horses? I think they're awesome animals.
Well, I certainly think so. I love my days out at the farm.
So all of that Harvest Festival stuff was really to showcase what we do on the Central Coast with the Salvation Army's New Expressions. In this case, the Equine Connections Ministry. Dan, you oversee that. You've got a team of volunteers who are amazing.
I do. Absolutely amazing. And
I'm one of them, by the way.
yes, Craig's there every Wednesday, and he is a very valued member of our team. Mind you, you were there much more than every Wednesday for the last few weeks, getting us all ready for this Harvest Festival. Lots of whippersnippering and fixing things and putting things together. So much appreciated. But yes, I have a great team of people, and I love that they just have a heart for these young people that we work with, and they come from diverse, backgrounds. Some of them, some of our team are there because they have a horse background and love horses and love the idea of facilitating a connection for other people with the horses. But I have quite a few volunteers that aren't from a horse background at all, and their background might be a little bit more gardening or other things, but they are there for these young people, and it is just such an amazing thing to see how beautifully these young guys are loved when they walk on site, and the community the community feel that we have with our team. I very much appreciate them. Things wouldn't happen without them, put it that way.
It's a big collection of volunteers, Rick. As with basically anything that Dan and I are doing with the Salvation Army's New Expressions, we really wouldn't be doing anything if it wasn't for the broader body of Christ. And to that end, your volunteers come from an array of different churches.
Yep.
Just put their hand up to say, we're committed to mission, and here's an opportunity to fulfill that, in our local setting. So, there's half a dozen different churches at least that are represented in the equine ministries, even some from your church, Rick, and put their hand up and be involved and support us with what we're doing.
I didn't even know that.
Is it a widely kept secret or not? Because we're talking about it on radio. Yeah. And so I think it's an example of, something of the heart of God, where the broader body of Christ does come together, pull together for the sake of the gospel and for the sake of the city, in this case for the sake of, some somewhat vulnerable young people in our city. As the Salvos, that's our core bread and butter. We're engaged in the more marginal spaces and where there is a greater sense of need. That's where you'll find us typically. And in many expressions of the Equine Connections, our work is targeted there, although it's not exclusively there, is it, Dan? You do work with people more broadly than that.
Yeah, we do. I have a disabilities group that comes out and helps us get some of the jobs around the farm done, and enjoy loving our horses as well. But our heart is very much for young people who are just in challenging situations and or have had challenging situations that they've experienced.
Yeah, there's a really cool story, Rick, that it played out over the COVID interruption to everyone's world. There, in that, what happens is every week there's a few schools that bus their students out to the farm where Dan runs this ministry, and they bus their students out, and the volunteer team wrap around them, love these kids, minister to them, share the love of Jesus with them, and then they're back on the bus and go back to their normal school day. Well, that came under the category of excursion for a number of schools because it was an off-site activity, and excursions got canned during COVID.
Yeah.
And but such was the desire for the schools to do this, they reclassified what this program relationship is with the school and said, no, this is core business. This is actually part of our school curriculum and what we do. And they wrote that into, the main, framework of the school activities so that they could continue to have their kids come and have that experience, which, really speaks to the value of what it's bringing in our community.
Yeah, it's nice. So where do your kids mainly come from? Are they like referred, or are they through, obviously through the Salvation Connections with the youth work up at Oasis and things like that, but how do people get connected from that point of view?
Well, predominantly we deal with schools. So we are set up to have groups come through. And our longest running school has been Hopetown School, which is just east of Wyong there. So that's a public school, all boys, and I think they run from year 4 up to year 12, and all of those students have a mental health diagnosis. So they have been within the mainstream system, and that just hasn't supported them well enough. So Hopetown is an amazing school with just spectacular staff that we are just in awe of. Every time they bring students out, there's all these different challenging behaviours and challenging backgrounds that they're dealing with, and they're just a beautiful team of professionals that bring the kids out. So Hopetown was our first school that came out. So they've been coming out for a number of years now. But we're also dealing with the Youth Off the Streets School. We've started with them this year. So I didn't actually know that Yachts or Youth Off the Streets had a school, but there's one up at Blue Haven, within half an hour of the farm. So we've been hosting those young people out there this year, and they are just a beautiful, beautiful group of young people, and some of them have never been near a horse. Others have grown up with horses at different times, but we're really loving connecting with them as well.
Very nice. We might take another break for a song, guys, and be back and maybe hear some stories of some of the encounters and the results you've seen from some of those. So let's hear from Lauren Daigle and You Say. We'll be right back. And we're loving the New Expressions program this morning here on 94.9 Rima Central Coast. Two very special guests with us, Craig and Danni Stephens, coming to us live over the Zoom waves. Back to you, Craig.
Yeah, well, praise God for Zoom, because it was last week we got rescued by Zoom. We had a guest in from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yeah, he showed lack of commitment, I thought, in not coming. But anyway, we'll forgive him.
Well, this is a little closer up at Lake Munmora. Yeah, anyway, so we are talking with Danni, my wife, about Equine Connections, and one of those expressions that is a new expression of Salvation Army ministry or kingdom work in the region. And we were listening to how, there'd been the big open day last weekend with the Harvest Festival sites that were across the Central Coast. We were a host site or a hub for that activity out at Yadaba Farm in Duralong, which is where a herd of horses are that are connecting with young people and vice versa, and seeing some beautiful ministry happen when we pull the church in and they support us and some other community volunteers. It is a place of wellness. Again, Yadaba Farm, what does Yadaba mean, Dan?
a Darkinyan word meaning to become well, becoming well.
Yeah, a great capture really of what we're wanting to do with, our community as the Salvation Army journey and with people. Rick, it's been interesting, hasn't it, listening to the interactions with, how horses might connect with people and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to hear some actual, some case studies, if you like, of how you've seen that work out in real life.
Yeah, okay. Well, we have a program that we vaguely stick to. So we like the kids to come in and be able to capture a little bit of learning how to care for the horses, or learning how to, be safe around the horse, or learning how to keep our horse safe when we're working with them, learning how to be a leader as well. So we tick off these different aspects of learning, but the heart of our program is really the connection that goes on, amongst that. So we will have a very loose program planned for the morning, and we just let things organically, evolve. So I remember one morning, a young boy taking one of our horses for a walk around some obstacles, and he was just practicing being a leader for that horse. And very quickly that all stopped, and this young boy was just leaning in to this horse and having this beautiful moment, and they were forward to forward, this horse with his neck outstretched towards this boy, and this boy bending over, both of them touching forwards, and they just stayed there for minutes, and they were eye to eye and just having a really magnificent moment of connection. So they're the moments that we just let happen and really enjoy. I remember another
just
time.
Before you go on, I just want to jump in. Rick, you're the CEO of Reba, right? You're the general manager guy. You're the guy who wants the role of leading this great big thing called Remo Central Coast.
Yeah.
And so leadership, is something that's in you that you've carried for years and years. What I didn't really calibrate to until I was in this context of with working with horses and kids was, leadership skills are skills that actually you need to refine and develop and learn. And so the opportunity to do some learning on how you might lead yourself and how you might be a leader of other people. Well, Dan has got this arrangement where kids can kind of practice that on horses or with horses, so that they, like the horse isn't a volatile thing that's about to jump up and as you said before, Dan, not judge someone, not be, playing out in a particularly negative way. It's almost like a safe space to practice learning leadership. Would you say that?
Yeah, it is, and it's fun. So they don't even realise that they're learning these things, but they are, and the horses are great at it, because if there's really not enough commitment to that leadership, well, you won't get much out of the horse. So the horse will happily just stand still until there's really a commitment to, I'm leading this and we're going together and here we go, this is us, before they can, get some movement.
You made an interesting comment there, Craig, that I don't know, that I really picked up on, and that's the whole concept of leading themselves. Because this would help them with that as well, because, that's the most important leadership any of us have, I believe, is, we need to know how to lead ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's a very simple thing, but that plays out with the horses. But it is about, what is your stance and how are you feeling inside? And have you taken a big breath? Are you confident with this? And where's your direction? What are you asking this horse to do? It's all things that I think are often missed. Some of our kids will just jump in and grab a lead rope and off they go, and it all just happens to be a mess. Then
that's horribly wrong.
Yeah. It all happens safely. But they have to stop and just restock and work out what are they doing with this, and it's a really great learning tool, because the incentive is working with these magnificent animals that are really happy to give of themselves.
And there's a real payback, isn't there, to the kid or to the young person when they have this humongous animal, happily trailing along behind them on the lead, basically submitting to them and saying, I'm trusting you to lead me through this obstacle course or whatever.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you use the word trust, because I think for a lot of the young people that come through our gates, trust is a big issue, trust of themselves and trust for other things around them. And so when, they learn that this big animal is actually needing to trust them in their space, I think that's huge. It really turns the table on their attitude and what they understand that they can bring to this space and bring for the horse. Like we just this week, I had a beautiful moment witnessing one of our horses. Every time you put a saddle on him, he gets nervous. He must have been pinched or must have been uncomfortable at some point in his history. So every time a saddle comes near him, he just starts nipping at his chest, and it's a nervous response to what's about to happen or what he anticipates might be about to happen. And this young boy that has been working with him for probably almost a year on and off, he came into our program absolutely fearful, not able to stand near a horse, even with someone with him for any more than a few moments. But now he's built this rapport with this horse, Toby, and understands his nervousness. And here he was holding the horse for me while I was putting the saddle on, and knowing that the nervousness is about to come, he's talking this horse through it. And, the saddle went on and that horse did not nip himself at all. And it was this beautiful, look what you've done. You've actually helped this horse through something that was really unpleasant for him, and he's trusted you with that. It's really lovely.
Beautiful.
And that's obviously the heart of, what we're, at a bigger picture looking to do is to help people to work in a trust relationship with Jesus. Just last week when we had a group out on the farm, had a beautiful moment. I mentioned, or Dan mentioned, that some of the students that arrive from different contexts are very volatile, potentially unstable in terms of mental health situations and so on. And quite frankly, sometimes it can be an absolutely chaotic trip out to the property from school. It might have been chaos going on at school, and then, on the bus that may have played out as well. And sometimes students might not actually make it to the property because of the chaos that's been going on on the bus, right? So it can be a fairly volatile sort of, group of people that arrive. But I had a young guy on a horse, and we were walking around on the arena. There were a couple of kids on horses at that point, and the student that I was with said to me, "Oh, Craig, can you take me over to that horse over there, to the guy over there on that horse?" And so we walked over there, and he's on this, big horse, and we get over, proximal to this other student, and my student says to the other student, "Sorry for what I said to you on the bus." Right? And I don't have any idea what's been said, but I can tell you now, we couldn't say it on air, and it wouldn't have been full of love, that's for sure. But he actually came to a point of apologising to his mate whilst they're both having this experience on the horses. His mate responds with, "That's okay, I forgive you."
Wow.
And I go, "Wow, this is a moment of
That's
reconciliation
huge.
that I'm watching, right?" And it was like, I took a moment to say to the student, they're probably the most powerful words you could ever say. "I'm sorry, and I forgive you." And we had a little bit of a teaching moment. About 5 minutes later, the same student on the same horse, we're on the other side of the arena at this point, he says to me, "Craig, can you tell me, what do you believe about heaven and hell?"
Wow.
And so straight away I'm able to explain how we're reconciled to God, how he's just experienced a reconciliation with his friend, and God through Christ made it possible for us to be reconciled with himself. A beautiful, beautiful ministry. We only got a couple of minutes left. Dan, what other stories you want to float before we're done?
I'm not sure I've got many other stories. I'm just really passionate about seeing people connect with creation. And there's so much beauty out there that I think a lot of people miss. whether it's through business or they're just, their natural environment is a very unnatural space, but just really passionate about having people come and experience who God is through touching their creation and all that's to enjoy there.
Why don't we wrap up then with maybe letting us know if people want to get involved either in a voluntary role and help you guys out, or if they've got maybe people in their lives that they think would benefit from Equine Connections, how can they get in touch with you?
Yep. Well, just through giving me a call. So my number is 0409 446 994. Happy to connect with people there. Mm-hmm. Always looking for volunteers, whether you've had lots of experience or no experience. There's a lot of other stuff going on in the farm as well, not just the horses. So we always welcome new people and really happy to have anybody who thinks that they would benefit from what's going on out there too.
Do you have any website or Facebook? Or
we've got Facebook as well. We do. So it's just Equine Connections, the Salvation Army Equine Connections. So you can find us there as well on Facebook.
Craig, any last words there?
Well, I don't know, other than, we get to have the opportunity to participate in God's great reconciliation of all creation. At the farm, we were able to listen to Dan, my wife, share something of the new expressions of ministry on the Central Coast. I think it's a real gift to the region. I'm seeing it have a beautiful impact in local schools and in family lives of people who reach out for help as well. And so really grateful to have been able to take a moment to showcase that ministry.
Well, and I'd like to say thank you to you both for bringing us to our attention, because I'm sure a lot of people were not aware of it going on, and Dan for being brave enough to get behind that microphone, in this case a computer screen. But great having you on board, and hopefully next time we can actually get you in the studio. And next week, let's hope we've got Mr. Knox back with us. Hope we know he's listening.
You've been listening to an Encore presentation of New Expressions, which can be heard live every Friday morning at 10 a.m. on 94.9 Rima Central Coast.